Have you ever looked at someone successful and wondered, how did they get there? Was it luck, talent, or was it something much smaller? Something so ordinary that most people never notice it. The truth is, success is rarely built in one extraordinary moment. It's built in thousands of ordinary ones. Every sunrise places a choice in your hands, a choice so small that it seems unimportant. Yet those tiny decisions quietly shape the person you'll become. This is the story of two friends who started at the same place, but whose choices led them to very different lives. Daniel and Samuel grew up on the same street. Every evening, they played football on the old dusty field until the sun disappeared behind the hills. After the games, they would lie on the grass, staring at the stars. One evening, Daniel smiled. One day, I'm going to be successful. Samuel looked up at the night sky. Me too. Daniel laughed. I think all it takes is one big opportunity. Samuel shook his head. I think success is built long before the opportunity arrives. Daniel smiled. We'll see. Neither of them realized that this simple conversation would shape the rest of their lives. Years passed. They graduated from school, found jobs at the same company, lived in the same town. To everyone around them, their lives looked exactly the same, but every morning, their choices were completely different. Before the sun rose, Samuel's alarm rang. He got out of bed immediately. He drank a glass of water, opened a notebook, and wrote three simple goals. Read 10 pages. Exercise for 20 minutes. Do today's work with excellence. Nothing extraordinary. Just three promises. Some mornings he felt tired. Some mornings he wanted to stay in bed. But instead of asking, how do I feel? He asked himself, who am I becoming? Then he stood up and got to work. Daniel's mornings were different. His alarm rang. He reached for his phone. 5 more minutes. 5 minutes became 20. 20 became 40. Soon he was rushing through breakfast, forgetting important things, and promising himself, tomorrow will be different. But tomorrow kept moving farther away. Weeks turned into months. Samuel finished one book, then another. He filled notebook after notebook with ideas. He exercised even when he didn't feel like it. He kept learning even when nobody noticed, because he understood something most people never do. A tree spends years growing its roots before anyone admires its branches. One afternoon, Daniel visited Samuel. Books filled one shelf. A calendar covered with check marks hung on the wall. Running shoes rested neatly beside the door. Daniel laughed. You've become really serious. Samuel smiled. No, I've become consistent. Daniel shrugged. Does missing one day really matter? Samuel looked at the calendar. One day won't change my life. He paused. But if one missed day becomes another, eventually I'm building a habit I never wanted. Daniel smiled politely. He wasn't convinced. After all, they still earned the same salary. They still lived in the same town. From the outside, nothing seemed different. But beneath the surface, everything was changing. Like two trees growing side by side, their roots were reaching in completely different directions. Time has a quiet way of revealing the truth, not in days, not even in weeks, but in the habits we repeat without thinking. Months passed. Samuel kept writing in his notebook every morning. Every mistake became a lesson. Every challenge became an opportunity to improve. While others complained about problems at work, Samuel searched for solutions. He wasn't the smartest employee. He wasn't the most talented, but he became the most dependable. One afternoon, his manager called him into the office. Samuel's heart raced. He wondered if he had done something wrong. Instead, the manager smiled. I've been watching you. Samuel stayed silent. Whenever something goes wrong, people look for excuses. You look for solutions. He paused. You've become someone people can depend on. Samuel left the office with a quiet smile, not because he had received praise, but because he realized something. The small habits he practiced every day were no longer things he did. They had become part of who he was. Meanwhile, Daniel's days followed the same pattern. He arrived at work just on time, sometimes a few minutes late. Whenever he wanted to read, he said, I'll start tomorrow. Whenever he planned to exercise, something else seemed more important. Whenever he wanted to save money, he found another reason to spend it. None of those choices felt important. After all, it was only one day, only one skipped workout, only one missed opportunity. But life doesn't judge us by one decision. It quietly adds them together, one after another, after another. One evening, Samuel and Daniel met at their favorite cafe. As they talked, Daniel noticed something. Samuel looked different. Not richer, not stronger, just calmer, more confident. You've changed, Daniel said. Samuel smiled. I don't think I changed all at once. Then what happened? I just became a little better every day. Daniel leaned back. I still don't understand how reading books and waking up early can change someone's life. Samuel looked around the table. He picked up a small spoon beside his coffee. How heavy do you think this is? Daniel laughed. Almost nothing. Could you hold it for 1 minute? Of course. What about 1 hour? Daniel smiled. My arm would probably get tired. What about all day? Daniel laughed again. Impossible. Samuel gently placed the spoon back on the table. The spoon never became heavier. What changed was the effect of carrying it for a long time. Daniel stopped smiling. Samuel continued. Our choices work the same way. One lazy day won't ruin your future. One productive day won't guarantee success. But repeat the same choice every day, and eventually it becomes heavy enough to shape your entire life. For the first time, Daniel had no answer. A week later, an email appeared in every employee's inbox. The company was offering a free professional training program. Only a handful of employees would be selected. It required extra study after work. Most people ignored it. Too much effort, they said. Samuel submitted his application that same afternoon. Daniel opened the form, then closed it. I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow became the next day, then another. A week later, the deadline had passed. Samuel had been accepted. Months later, he completed the program, gained new skills, met experienced mentors, and earned a certificate that opened new opportunities. Daniel congratulated him. You were lucky. Samuel smiled kindly. Luck didn't fill out the application. Those words stayed with Daniel all the way home. That night, he couldn't sleep. He remembered every book he never started, every workout he postponed, every opportunity he delayed. For the first time, he stopped blaming luck. He stopped blaming other people. Instead, he asked himself one question. What if my future isn't waiting for one big opportunity? What if it's waiting for one small decision that I keep refusing to make? As the first light of dawn touched his window, Daniel quietly sat up in bed. His phone was within reach. He reached toward it, then stopped. Then stopped. For the first time in years, he made a different choice. Daniel slowly pulled his hand away from his phone. For the first time in years, he chose himself over distraction. He walked to the window and opened the curtains. Golden sunlight spilled into the room, warming his face. It felt like the beginning of something new. He found an old notebook buried in a drawer. Most of its pages were still blank. On the very first page, he wrote 5 simple words. Today, I begin again. He didn't write impossible goals. He didn't promise to change his entire life overnight. Instead, he wrote 3 small promises. Read 10 pages, take a 30-minute walk, finish today's work before going to bed. Daniel looked at the list and smiled. I can do this. And he did. That evening, he crossed off every goal. For the first time in months, he felt proud. Not because he had achieved something extraordinary, but because he had kept a promise to himself. The next day, he did it again. Then again. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Little by little, the man who always waited for tomorrow disappeared. A new Daniel began to emerge. His confidence no longer came from wishing. It came from action. One afternoon, Samuel invited Daniel on a mountain hike. When they arrived at the trail, Daniel looked toward the distant peak. It seemed impossibly high. There's no way I can climb that, he said. Samuel smiled. Don't look at the top. Daniel looked confused. Then what should I look at? Samuel pointed to the ground in front of them. The next step. So they started walking. After a while, Daniel grew tired. How much farther? Samuel gave the same answer. Just take the next step. Hour after hour, they climbed. Whenever Daniel stared at the summit, he felt overwhelmed. Whenever he focused only on the next step, okay, the journey became possible. Finally, they reached the top. Daniel stood in silence. The town below looked tiny. The mountain that once seemed impossible now lay beneath his feet. Samuel looked toward the horizon. Success isn't reaching the top, he said quietly. Daniel looked at him. Then what is success? Samuel smiled. Success is becoming the kind of person who keeps climbing. Those words stayed with Daniel forever. Months later, life tested them in a way neither expected. The company where they worked announced major layoffs. Both Daniel and Samuel lost their jobs. Years earlier, Daniel would have panicked. He would have waited for someone to rescue him, but not anymore. The next morning, he woke before sunrise. He exercised, he updated his resume, he continued learning new skills. Uh, every Friday, he met Samuel at the same little cafe. They never asked, why is this happening? Instead, they asked, what can we do today? A few weeks later, Samuel received a phone call. A manager he had met during his training program remembered his dedication and offered him a new position. Not long after, Daniel received a message from someone he had helped months earlier. We're hiring, the message read. Would you like to come for an interview? During the interview, the employer asked, what makes you different from everyone else? Daniel smiled. I used to think success came from talent. He paused. Now I know it comes from keeping promises to yourself, one day at a time. A few days later, he got the job. Years passed. Daniel helped his parents repair their home. Samuel began mentoring young people who wanted to improve their lives. One evening, they returned to the old football field where they had played as children. The field looked smaller now. Children laughed as they chased the ball across the dusty ground. Daniel smiled. Do you remember when we thought success was waiting for us somewhere in the future? Samuel nodded. It was never waiting in the future. It was hiding inside the choices we made every single day. The sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon. For a moment, the two friends stood in silence. Then the narrator spoke. Every great life is built the same way, not by one lucky break, not by one perfect opportunity, but by thousands of ordinary decisions. One page read, one workout completed, one promise kept, one step taken. When people finally see your success, they may call it luck, but you'll know the truth. Success begins long before anyone notices. It begins with the small choices you make, especially when no one is watching. So tomorrow morning, when your alarm rings, remember this. Your future won't be decided by one extraordinary moment. It will be decided by the next small choice you make, because success starts with small daily choices. The next choice is yours.